My name's Pamela Pinski. I run Digbeth is Good, which is a hyperlocal website that looks after the area of Digbeth. So, a little bit more about me. I came to Birmingham in 2003 to come to university and never left. I consider myself an honorary Brummie. I haven't developed the twang just yet, but it's getting there. And I've been living here in Digbeth since 2009, so just over 6 years now. So, I run a hyperlocal website, but what is a hyperlocal website? So, a hyperlocal website is something that covers an area, a very specific geography, a very tight geographic area. It can be a website, but it can also be a print publication, a newsletter, something that's put through people's letterboxes. It can also be a combination of all of those things. And what they cover, it varies depending on where you are and the website. So we have a number of websites around the UK. There's a nice lovely map here that I've stolen from the Creative Citizens website. I have said that I've stolen it, so it's fine. But you can see there's a huge number of them around the UK, concentrated specifically in larger conurbations, so Birmingham, London, Manchester, and I think Cardiff is the other one. Cardiff, Bristol area's got quite a lot of them there. So they cover lots of different things. So some of them cover news, and that can be things like investigative journalism. So you've got a naughty counsellor who's spending their money on something they shouldn't be spending them on. So that's something that they do some of them do look at. Local elections, crime, policing, planning, and applications and things that are happening, so that kind of thing could be covered into news. Some of them run campaigns in terms of save our school, save our local community centre, that kind of thing. They can, like other things like stopping the bypass or any kind of road developments and things like that that could affect the local area. Some of them use it as a page for announcements, so school closures when there's snow, for example, and schools are being closed. So that's something that B31 did, that here in Birmingham they ran a snow watch during the winter, not last winter, I think the winter before, when it was particularly harsh, and they were using that for announcements. They were using people going to their website, to their pages and their Facebook, etc., looking for news on when schools are being closed, etc. Events, so be that local community events, but also things like larger festivals, Christmas light switch-ons, etc. So there's lots of things. And pictures, some of them can be solely just pictures and, of the local area, depending on what people are doing. We have a national hyperlocal community in terms of Talk About Local and also the Creative Citizens Project. We all meet up together, and it's a very, great network. I call it my little hyperlocal family, really. I've got 2 members here, waving, over at Steph and James. And it's a really supportive community because we're not in competition with each other, which is the beauty of having something that's based on such a really tight geographical area, such a tight area, that you're not going to be cannibalizing anybody else's audience or anything like that. And we learn a lot from each other, so we share best practice, share things that are going well, steal ideas from each other, essentially. I mean, it's the best form of networking. So when something goes well for somebody, you steal it and see if it was going to work for you. Clearly we all live in very different areas, so Digbeth, by its very nature, is quite urban and not as much residential, but it's growing in terms of residential numbers. So we don't tend to have that kind of village feel. So part of what I'm doing is trying to help get that. Birmingham has got the largest number of hyperlocal websites in the country. And that's from research that Dave did, Dave's downstairs. So you can go and say hi and talk to him a bit more about it. I'm sure he'd be really delighted to tell you a bit more about his research. This is just a selection of some of the ones we have in the Digbeth area. And there's a news story that was going on BBC News when the research was released last year. Interestingly, from the research that was carried out, most people who run hyperlocal websites do it on a voluntary basis, and they don't really make tons of money. If they do, it might just be to cover the costs of administrating the website as opposed to making a wage for themselves. The other interesting thing from the research is that there's quite a lot of longevity in terms of hyperlocal. People who run a hyperlocal website or Facebook page, whatever, tend to do it for a long time. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Most of them have been around for quite a while now. So it kind of gives you an idea that it's something that people are committed to. And I think by its nature, because you're committed to the area that you live in most of the time, you tend to be a bit more committed to running a website of its stuff. Interestingly as well from the research, around half the people who run a hyperlocal website in the UK have some form of journalistic training or media background or something like that. That is not true for everybody. I certainly don't. So it's just an interesting thing to know. I thought it was quite interesting anyway. So a bit more about Digbeth is Good. Digbeth is Good was established about 2007-8-ish. It was established by somebody working at the custard factory, which is just over the road, to try and give a bit more information about Digbeth and a bit more, so people had a bit more knowledge about the area. Because not much was known about what's happening in Digbeth. And there's a few quotes here that are from a oral history project that took place a couple of years ago called Digbeth Speaks. These are quotes from me, and I think one of them is apt in terms of what people think of Digbeth, that I think there's not much here, but when you scratch the surface, there's actually a lot of activity happening behind closed doors, and I think Impact Hub is one of those, a key example. I was just talking to a gentleman earlier who said that he walked past the place a few times because you can't really see it's here, but there's so much stuff happening. And I think that's characteristic of the whole area. So it was established, as the name may suggest, to kind of give a good angle on Digbeth. Digbeth doesn't really feature that much in local mainstream media, but when it does, it tends to be in a negative light. So it was more to kind of promote the good things that are happening here, because there's a lot of good stuff happening here. It has run differently in its period. So I kind of formally took over the website in 2011, but I was contributing to the website for a period before that. It was, I say, established by somebody working at the custard factory, then taken over by a lady called Nikki Getgood, who some of you might be familiar with, who's now moved away to Cardiff in 2011, which is why I kind of took over custody of the website. And I'm hoping that, I'm trying to build a team up around me to help support it, because at the minute it's just me mainly running it. But it'd be great to have lots of different voices. So if you are interested, then come and talk to me afterwards. Be delighted to have you on the team. Things that I cover is stuff like the arts and galleries and the creative scene happening in Digbeth, but also I'm also part of Digbeth Residents Association, which is trying to build up this community spirit in the area. I estimate we have about 5,000 to 6,000 people living here at any one time, but it is quite a transient population. So trying to build up that idea of community and get people to identify with Digbeth as a place to live, as well as a place to come and have fun. Other things such as Peaky Blinders is one of the things that I've covered that has been really successful. So Peaky Blinders, for the uninitiated, why have you not seen it? It's a great BBC 2 drama. It's coming back for its 3rd season in the autumn. Stars Cillian Murphy, Tom Hardy, written by Birmingham boy Stephen Knight, who's great friends with the website actually. We kind of latched onto it. The Peaky Blinders were a gang that operated in the Small Heath area of Birmingham at the turn of the century, so back in the 1800s, although the show is kind of taken some artistic license and set it in the post-World War I era. And Small Heath weren't really doing anything about it, so we decided to jump on because they're our neighbours. So we thought we'll jump on and take some credit, and it has been featured in the show as well. So we've had a really great relationship with the show and had some of the actors coming over to Digbeth and doing events for us as well. Where I have to put where on there because I need to complete the questions, but clearly it's in Digbeth, so that's this area here. So one of the things that I try to do with the website is to start a conversation debate, and this gives you an idea of some of the stuff that we've covered. So top left, you've got a gentleman feeding a Shire horse with some beer, which is great. It was at the Birmingham Beer Festival, which was happening just on Sherlock Street a couple of years ago. It's now grown and grown and grown. It's got too big to be happening in Digbeth anymore, so it's moved. But that's something that we supported, and the Residents Association also supported as a charity partner. Middle picture is what is now the Tesla showroom on the high street. And when it was before, I think it was a BMW garage or a Mercedes garage beforehand, it got boarded up, and a local street artist wrote, "Laura, marry me," on there. He proposed to his girlfriend, fiance. So we ran a story about it because we knew who the artist was, and it got attached or latched onto by local media, who we then tracked down the artist, tracked down Laura, and they had a nice little phone interview on the radio about it. At the end, you've got an article in the Birmingham Mail about us and our plans for potentially turning the raised viaduct, disused viaduct here in Digbeth, into a park, similar to the High Line project in New York, and I think there's another one in Liverpool or Leeds, somewhere up north, I forget where exactly. Nothing's happened with that just yet, but it's an idea, and it's something that I think everyone's quite keen on. And the council have also moved on to it and including it into their Curzon master plan for when HS2 comes. So fingers crossed. Pete Morgan's there just because we've featured a lot of times on his radio show in the mornings, just in terms of phone-ins, things about HS2, other stuff happening in Digbeth. And the other thing is that we're really lucky. Is that we have got this history of iconic brands. Now this is a still taken from a animation that was created by a student studying at Birmingham City University, which again is another great thing for Digbeth, because we've got that right on our doorstep, especially now they're moving to the Parkside campus by Eastside City Park. Their animation students created this here. So as well as Thai food tea, so we have Thai food wharf just around the corner. Bird's custard powder was made in Digbeth, and another thing, Bro cream was created in Digbeth. So we've got our fair share for a tiny little part of the city. We have got our fair share of iconic brands. So that's another good thing. And all of these things are designed to start a conversation, a debate, try and get people talking, thinking about it, not just in the media press, but also locally have people coming up to me and talking about stuff. So it's great that you can have that effect in an area. Success stories, just briefly, things that we've been recognised for. Talk About Local have given us 2 on awards, they call them. They don't like calling them awards. So we've had 2 awards, and we've also been recognised by the Birmingham City Council as people who make places proud. So that's another great thing for us. So a little bit more about, if you are thinking about running one, what kind of best practice is. Things I'd suggest is, what do you really want to achieve? Is it something that you just want to use as a repository for news happening in the area, for events, somewhere to keep pictures? Or is it that you actually want to spark a debate, you want to start a conversation, you want to get something moving, you want to have that kind of civic action, that participation? What are your skills? Are you a great writer? Are you a great listener? Are you a great photographer? Do you know people that are all of these above? Use that, use your network to your advantage, help. There's nothing wrong with asking people to do things for you. The worst they can say is no. I think there's a big fear about asking for help, and there shouldn't be. But once you've kind of got your idea of what it is that you want to do, think about what it is that you want to, things that you can do to increase your impact. It's more about this is a bit of a presentation that I gave at a Pecha Kucha night a few years ago, but condensing it really down in terms of use your connections, make sure that you are present, you're in the moment, you're talking about things that are current. Be contactable. Set up an email address that isn't your personal email address if that's what you want, or social media accounts that are not directly connected to you if you want to be able to step away from it when you can. But you shouldn't be afraid of putting up your email address on there. I have a Gmail address for Digbeth is Good, and I don't get any emails in there that are not related to Digbeth, and that's a very small amount of email traffic. Most of it happens on Twitter and Facebook, but it's a good idea to be able to be contactable. In terms of me, I think friendliness and professionalism are a must. Part of that is to do with my name. I can't escape easily. You can Google me, you'll find me. So I can't say anything that's going to be naughty because it's going to be attached to me for the rest of my life on my cyber footprint. But the other thing is to be adaptable. The website or whatever it is you set up might change with time. It might move. It might certainly start to become just a repository for photos, but then you might become annoyed with a litter problem and it becomes an activism website, or other people want to come and join on and be a bit more, put it in a different direction and, kind of let it. As long as it's not a affecting your core principles. And I think adaptability and having that things change over time is a great skill. Advice from me, but also other people, think about what model it is that you want to do. I've kind of mentioned briefly earlier that the research done by the Creative Citizens Project showed that not many people are making a wage or making money out of doing a hyperlocal, but there are some that are really successful because of the lack of print media in their area. And so they've become a substitute for a local newspaper, and therefore they can charge for advertising on their website and use it to supplement their income. So that is possible, it's definitely possibility. Birmingham, we're a bit spoiled, so it's not really, and I think it goes against the ethos of what I tried to create with the website in it, that it's unadulterated and, you know, really it's got a voice with integrity. It's not being sponsors messages or anything like that. It is just my opinion or the opinion of other people that live in Digbeth, which I think is important for this area, but it could be a different thing for different areas. Think about what you want to commit to the site. Is it daily, weekly, just ad hoc every so often when you're thinking about it? I try to post daily, but that sometimes doesn't happen. It's fine. You're a volunteer. If you're doing it on a voluntary basis, I think people understand that it's not necessarily going to happen all the time. What's your USP? So USP is a unique selling point for people not inducted into those three-letter acronyms. What is it that makes you different and makes what you're trying to bring, like you're bringing something different to the area? Try not to replicate something that's already there. I've put I Love Digbeth there because that is a website that was set up by a friend of mine, a neighbour, who tried to monetize a website to try and create something to, you know, where people would come for events and information for reviews about stuff happening in the area, but also to advertise their products and services. I don't think he had enough of a unique selling point in order to make any money out of it, and so it has kind of bitten the dust a little bit. So I think that's not down to me trying to be like cannibalize it or anything. I think it's just that Digbeth is Good had such a strong followership already that anybody else trying to come and replicate that model wasn't going to succeed, essentially. And don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's the key thing. I've said it already, but don't. I mean, we're a very friendly community, very friendly, and happy to give advice and share best practice and show you even how to set up a website, etc. And that's it. So, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? You don't have to have any. You can come and talk to me afterwards.
Anyone?
Oh, Dave. Dave's raising his hand. No. Hi.
Hello Pam. I always have a question. So it's quite interesting you talked about money. Because actually I'm writing up some of the research you referenced at the moment. I'm actually writing something about money.
Okay.
And it's quite interesting because there's a kind of tension around it actually. You can see a kind of, and we interviewed lots of people, including yourself, and it's kind of a tension around this feels like a civic thing.
Yes.
Should I be making money from it? And I kind of know how to make little trickles of money because I know how Google Ad works, or I can ask the butcher for 10 quid for a month for a, but the way people talk about it, you can tell there's a kind of tension really. And I wonder if it's because maybe the hyperlocal seems to be more, maybe it feels less about hard news and more about something else, kind of, I don't know, the warm glow of doing it or something.
Cat's gone missing, etc.
Yeah, I know. I wonder if I wonder if you feel that tension around money, or if you don't, you just say that's not for me. I don't need that. And if so, how do these things become sustainable then?
Okay, I agree. I think there is a tension. Personally, I'm in a very fortunate position in that, because I work with Digbeth Residents Association as well as Digbeth Residents Association, there is funding available for me to run the website. So I'm quite lucky in that I don't have to pay for anything out of my own pocket in terms of hosting and the domain name. But if I had to, then I wouldn't feel guilty about making money to kind of cover that, because it is quite expensive, or it can get quite expensive, particularly if your website gets really big. In terms of the civic thing, I don't get much out of it. I don't get an income out of it. That said, I do get freebies out of it sometimes. I might get, a free meal here because I'm reviewing a restaurant or something like that. I try not to feel guilty about it. because I do spend a lot of time on the website. And the other thing is I don't take advantage of it. I will not go and just expect a free meal every week from that restaurant. When it opens up, and then if they contact me again because they want another piece written about it, then yeah, fair enough. And I'm happy to do that. And actually, sitting down and talking to somebody face to face helps build those relationships as well. So there's a benefit from going there. Great. So yeah, I can understand the tension. And I think it's trying not to feel guilty about it, because I don't think anyone who does a good job with a hyperlocal should feel guilty about it.
Anyone else?
Hi there, just a quick one. It's just interesting to me that you're running a hyperlocal website in Digbeth, because as you say, it hasn't got a huge population in terms of residents. Mm-hmm. I think of Digbeth as being somewhere people go to work, not necessarily where people live. So I was just wondering, in terms of your audience, are you appealing or trying to appeal to primarily people who are in Digbeth, or are you trying to appeal to people in Birmingham that you want to come into Digbeth and use Digbeth?
A mix. Yeah, good question. It's appealing to residents because I do put in stories there about the Residents Association and about things that are happening in the area. But I think it's also to try and promote the stuff that's happening in Digbeth in terms of, like, we have City of Colours, the street art festival that we had, and that attracted people from, Europe. People flew in to come and have a look at the graffiti that was taking place here. So yeah, it's a mixture. And we have quite a big Twitter followership, something about 10,500 now. And that's definitely not just people living in Digbeth, because there's not that many people that live here. But I think, like you say, it's where people come to play as well as to visit and work. So I think it's got a wider audience than just the people who live here.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Hi. Another question.
Hiya. So I was just wondering, kind of in terms of like when it began, what did the kind of growth curve look for you, and how long was it before you felt like it was being successful, and what those kind of small wins that made it possible to keep the motivation in the slower periods of growth or in that kind of startup bit?
Okay. I think I can't really answer the question for the initial part of the website because I wasn't living in Digbeth when it first was launched. But there was definitely a period around 2011-12 when we definitely got really big, a lot bigger. I'm not sure exactly what spurred that, but the reason why I knew we were getting big was because I was hogging space on somebody else's server in order to host the website, and I got kicked out because they said, "Oh, you got too big now, you need to go somewhere else, you need to find your own garden, you can't be camping in my back garden, you need to go find your own house," essentially, which is what I was doing. For people that are not techie speak, I was just camping in someone's back garden, they told me to go get a house. So yeah, that's when it kind of got a lot bigger, and I'm not sure exactly what brought it on. I think my kind of professional training is that I'm a marketer, and so I try and find the best ways that I can get a message out there and how I can amplify it through social media, but also through traditional media as well. And so I've been quite welcoming of interviews and things like that from local press, and that was the period of time there was a lot of interest from the local press in Birmingham in what stuff was happening in Digbeth, but also in terms of hyperlocal and this. So but the BBC got involved and had an event, I think 2012 time, about learning a bit more about what the hyperlocal community does in Birmingham and how they can complement the BBC offering and other traditional media. And I think that's then all those kind of little things are kind of little step wins that are coming up, and then Peaky Blinders that kind of helped explode as well. So there's been lots of great stuff. Thank you.
Maybe just one more.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to do that one.
I was going to say, is he just going to pass it over? Right, I was going to go try and help out.
Thank you. Do you have times when your enthusiasm for it wanes, where actually it's much more of a chore than an asset in your life, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's difficult. I'm not sure how I deal with it. I think it's because I'm so committed to it, and I feel like it's such a part of me now in terms of the website as I am of it, that I feel like I can't let it down. It feels like it is like having a child, and sometimes the child is having a tantrum, and you have to just deal with it. yeah, the enthusiasm wanes, particularly when there's things that are not happening. But I think I'm very fortunate in that every so often when that does happen, I tend to be really lucky, and an email will just pop out of the blue from somebody who I don't know, who will just say, thanks for everything you do. It's not going unnoticed. It's really appreciated, and that kind of helps spur you on. It's just one little thing like that that can give you so much motivation and enthusiasm to carry on for another few months. Times when it is difficult, so like at the start of this year, I tried to, in January, in terms of people's New Year's resolutions and trying to latch onto that, I did another call for volunteers, for people to come and help with the website, and it was really successful. Loads of people got involved, I invited them all along because I thought it'd be easier to talk to everybody in a group. One person turned up. That person, I spent 2-3 hours with them, training them, and they've never blogged. And that kind of makes you feel a bit, loses, you kind of demotivated a little bit. But, you know, you keep going on, and I think more people have responded. One person turned up. So next year, if I do the same thing again, maybe 2 people turn up and maybe one of them will actually blog. So I think it's just, yeah, about maybe building in resilience in yourself as well. And like I said, if you're a volunteer, it's voluntary. You're not accountable to anyone but yourself, even if you do feel that you're accountable to everybody who's following you. I think and that's a difficult thing. Sometimes you just need to be reminded of that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much,
Excellent.
Pam.
Thank you, everybody.